All right. My name is Elissa Unton, and I am the CEO and founder of ArcVita. I have the distinct pleasure today of talking with Anita Rodriguez about momentum, and specifically about maintaining momentum in your career. And as it relates to people who are job searching, this is a big deal because it can take some time. So keep the ball rolling if you're a sports person. Anita, I know you are. Um, Continue, maintain, keep going. Like that's what it all is, right? And in the thick of it, it takes skill to do that. So very excited to talk about maintaining momentum with you, Anita, and I'm going to jump right into it. Tell us about give us just kind of your overview of your story, your early education, and then how you transitioned along the way.
Okay, I'm happy to. It's funny because I started out in college thinking I was going to be a teacher. And so that's where my educational aspirations led me down that path. I had gotten a degree in liberal studies, and then a long story, but I also ended up getting a degree in English. So I double majored out of college. I ended up being in marketing, and I did that for about 8 years. And then after 9/11, um, I decided I wanted to change gears. So that was my first career, was in marketing in for-profits. And I'm just gonna kind of jump ahead real quick. I'm gonna be 50 in December, and I'm on my third career. So anyone
Wow.
who is considering changing careers or really doing an about face and doing something different, it's never too late. Who knows? I might do another career before I retire. But I'm just saying, you can do whatever you want. Should ever stop you if you want to do something different. And so, about 8 years into my marketing career, I felt like I really wanted to do something different. But my marketing has never actually left me. It's come with me. All those skills that I had, I just keep adding layers. So that's the thing about when you have skills and experience, you take those with you. You don't lose
Mm-hmm.
them. Nothing. No, education is never lost. It's never wasted, and that's true with the skills you gain in any job. And so when I took those marketing experience, I went to work for a nonprofit for the first time. And I used that marketing experience to work for a nonprofit. And I used to joke around in fundraising. Now people actually purposefully go into fundraising. So the fundraising ended up being my second career for a nonprofit. And I did that for 17 years. And I joke
And
around because
when did you decide? So you came from marketing into the nonprofit. Was that tied to your education, or was that you got the
not at
education?
all. I had
Okay.
no experience in nonprofit, no experience in fundraising. I had only the marketing, and I had been working with small business owners on my own. I had actually started a small business because I had experience with making business plans and marketing plans with the various jobs I had had. But I didn't want to go back to working for big companies like Pioneer Electronics is on my resume. Good company, but I just didn't want to work for a big company anymore. I wanted to do something more meaningful, which is how I ended up in nonprofit work. So I ended up working for a nonprofit, community-based nonprofit that was helping minorities develop business plans and get funding. And I ended up working for them doing marketing and doing just exactly that. Well, soon they figured out that I was a good writer. I mean, remember, I was an English major. And so I started writing their grants, and then they started making me help with their events. And next thing I know, I'm actually doing all the fundraising, and I'm running like 7 departments. And I was there for about 3.5 years, and I learned a lot about it. And at some point, I decided that was going to be my next career. I'm going to keep going down that path. But I needed to go work for other nonprofits to learn more about fundraising because I didn't know. And as I decided to make that my second career, I decided I need to learn more about it. Oh, there's one thing I forgot to say. When I was working still in for-profit, I was working in male-dominated industries like Pioneer, some other manufacturing companies. And this was back in the 90s where, women like me, there weren't a lot of us in male-dominated industry. And I did not have a business degree. So I wanted to go back to school and get another degree, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to get another bachelor's degree. So I got a master's instead. And so that's when I got my master's in organizational management. I was able to do that at night while still working. So for me, when I wanted to improve my edification in a field, I would look to what I needed in that field. So when I was still in for-profit, I figured I needed a master's degree. Again, I took that with me. Having that master's degree in for-profit still helped me because it put me above other people who were looking for similar positions, and it also helped me leverage a better salary. So I took that with me into the nonprofit world, and I was able to get director level positions pretty quick. While I was working in a nonprofit, moving along, in 2011, I decided to get what's called a certified fundraising executive. And that's something that only about 5,000 individuals in the entire country have. And you got to imagine, there's 5,000 nonprofits in Orange County alone. So
Yeah.
if you can multiply that against the whole country, that made me a very valuable asset to anybody in the country. So people in the nonprofit sector really liked the vectors of development that have a CFRE. It put me up really high on LinkedIn because if you type in CFRE as a recruiter, you don't have that many people, especially if you start matching that against what industry you're looking for. So again, I looked at what I was doing and what I needed to do to put myself above and beyond other folks, not just how much money I raised, what my educational experience is, but what else could I do? And that's when I got my CFRE. Excuse me, sorry.
So you were already working in development and fundraising when you went and got your CFRE, and you did that to make yourself, I'm sure, to learn and also to make yourself more marketable. And then how many more years did you stay in development and fundraising for nonprofits?
Well, from 6 more years. I was in total in nonprofit and fundraising for 17 years total.
And then what made you decide to leave? And we don't have to it doesn't have to be a long story, but how did you decide okay, that's the end of this second?
Yeah. Well, believe it or not, there's a lot of politics involved in nonprofit, and a lot of directors of development don't get the support they need to do their job. And so I got tired of it. I loved the work, but I didn't like the environment I was being forced to work in. It was very stressful, and I was just tired of it. I didn't want it out. And so I decided to explore. Yeah. And this is where things got a little iffy for me, because this is when I turned to ArcVita, because I knew I wanted to do something different. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily want to go back to just marketing. Marketing had left me behind, and I would require me to kind of go back to school in a way I didn't want to do. I don't mind taking classes and workshops, but I didn't want to go get a whole nother degree. I was like, I'm done with that. But so that's when I reached out to you, Alyssa, and you told me, Anna, you introduced me to Anna, and we set some coaching classes, and she put me on this plan to get me on momentum, right?
Yeah, to get your momentum. And so that's an awesome intro, and I want to jump into the meat of the conversation about momentum. But before I do that, where did you end up transitioning to? Just to give us that you worked with ArcVita, and then where are you now? Yeah.
So I ended up at a company called Kairos Investment Management Company, and it's a real estate investment firm. It's not huge. It's actually considered a small firm, but they make some very big deals. And what I do is I am the program manager for what's called an impact fund, and they call it Kimpact for K for Kairos. But an impact fund, what it does is it people invest in this fund, and they buy affordable housing communities throughout the country, and they have a purpose of having a socioeconomic purpose. So the investors make money, but not as much money as they would for market rate communities. And they have this feel good part to it where they know they're giving back to the residents because they're affordable housing. And my part of it is the social programs that I bring to the people. So I get to still tap into the good feelings that I have for helping the residents, as well as my knowledge of the communities, the nonprofits, how they work, how they function. And in fact, I had to sell them on this, because when I had my interview, they were thinking they needed someone who was more like an event manager. And I said, I really think you need someone who's a resource manager who understands what nonprofits need in return, because we're asking people to do all this stuff for free. And if you go to a nonprofit, I know that they need to reach their numbers, and I understand how they work, and so I can communicate with them in their lingo. And so I know what I'm giving them is their numbers, and they're going to give us the services and support that the residents need. And so by the end of the conversation, I asked them a question that Anna had told me to ask them. Is there anything, is there any reason why you think that I'm not a good fit for this role, or something to that effect? I can't remember the exact question. And John, who was, I was told by my friend who introduced me to the position, he was notoriously difficult in interviews. He said, actually, I came into this interview thinking that you were not the right person for the job because you're a fundraiser, and you completely convinced me otherwise, that it is a resource position. And I was completely flattered by that because of that
Yeah.
one question.
What an
But I felt
amazing,
like
what an
John got
amazing transition, Anita. I mean, I'm so thrilled for you that you were able to transition your role, your function, and clearly by networking in and that
Mhm.
AgFida was able to support you. When I was thinking about momentum and how are we going to frame this conversation, I came across the quote from Dr. Stephen Kramer, who's an author, a psychologist, and an author of a book called The Progress Principle. He said, of all the things that can boost people's work life, the single most important is simply making progress on meaningful work. And
Okay.
even just listening to you, like so much of what you're doing is so meaningful, and that's amazing. So thank you for sharing your story with us. What are, as we drop into thinking about making progress, that part of that
Yeah.
quote, what are the best ways you set yourself up for success? And I'm thinking of this, of course, more broadly in maintaining momentum in your work life, and
Mhm.
specifically also in as it relates to our audience, who are often people in career transition, as you were last summer.
Mhm. Well, I know that, speaking of, I remember very clearly where I was when I was doing my transition. I was so confused and lost. And Anna was very great to speak with because she not only was very compassionate, but she was also good at pushing me. Okay, how many calls? Are you doing your calls? And so I knew I was going to have to speak with her, so I better get my work done. But I did have to look at it as a job. Finding a job has to feel like a job, but not in a bad way, in a good way. I remember spoke to Anna about is that I was very fundraiser. You have to be right. I was very good at networking for the nonprofit, but I was very bad at networking for myself. I was never good at. I had to learn. I had to get past this mental wall that I had that said, "No, I'm not supposed to talk about myself. I can't go and network for my. This weird. You know what I mean?" So I had to talk it through with Anna. And how do you do that? How do you approach somebody and basically market yourself? I'm not one of those Instagram people, with a self brand. So that's what I had to figure out how to do. And I learned once I started talking to people and following Anna's advice and developing my messaging, that people were very receptive, especially when you first start working through it. You talk to people that you know and you explain the situation. They're very open to speaking with you, and then it gets easier to reach out to people that you don't know as well, and then branching out. My biggest challenge was because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so it took me a long time to figure out. The nice thing was that, but just by talking to enough people, they were finding positions that they felt would be good for me, and so they started sending me roles, which is how I came across this one. I actually envy people who know clearly what they wanted to do, but this was my third career at this point, and I just wanted to be happy. I wanted to I also tell people, I just want a company that's a good company, and I want bosses that I like. And I just, you know what I mean? I'm at the point where I just want to enjoy what I do for a living and look forward to going to work.
That's
And so
amazing.
that's
So
where I was at.
yeah, those networking conversations actually help set you up for success. That's amazing.
Very much so.
How did you in that search, and I'm sure in your work now too, stay focused and productive?
Well, I did have a spreadsheet. I'm very much a spreadsheet person. I do that for the personal and for work. I have what I call master trackers. I have tabs. I have to-do lists. I have the great satisfaction of checking things off. I'm also one of those people, if I did something extra, I put it on the list and then cross it off because I like feeling accomplishment. But so I definitely have my spreadsheets. Everybody has a different thing. But so I like to feel like I know what's going on. I don't like when things are out of order. I'm also very orderly on my desk, and people don't think I'm working, but I am. And if it's too messy, then I feel like the world's going to end. But that's my style. Everybody has their style. So, whether you have a to-do list or a spreadsheet or a bunch of sticky notes, as long as you have a way of tracking, I guess that's what matters. And I would also know what I was going to do the next day. So we developed a system, send emails, do follow-up phone calls a week later or however many days later. Um, and, just as long as you be consistent. I just had to be consistent, which is how you get your momentum.
So when you say, I want to follow up on that because it was sort of three different things. So definitely the trackers, Archvita is big on tracking, but you also mentioned setting the goals, and your style is very organized. But you said something there. You said, I knew what I was going to do the next day. So did you look at the end of your day, your working day when you were in transition, did you look at what you thought you would do the next day, or did you have a planning session? What did that look like?
Oh, I would look at, like, if I didn't get through everything I was going to do that day, then that would obviously go on to the next day, or based on the conversations I had that day. Sometimes it would set me up for what I was going to do the next day. I typically, whatever I was doing that day, my goal was to plan for meetings. I was trying to I know that I try to have phone calls, but I'm more of I like to meet in person. So I was trying to schedule as much as possible in-person meetings, but some people were living out of state. So I was trying to schedule phone calls. So sometimes I was scheduling phone calls and I knew those were going to be happening throughout the week, or sometimes they were in-person meetings. So that, usually I had those coming up. And if I wasn't having phone calls or meetings, then I knew I was going to be having either emails or phone calls to make. And if I didn't have any of those lined up, then I was going to have to hop on LinkedIn and start doing some research on there to see who I can connect with next.
So, and I'm sorry, by the way, that you're stuck at home with COVID. Our in-person meetings are really not going well. So your system is that you had a plan where
I learned how to do Zoom and
right?
no.
But you had this plan where you were setting up meetings, and then so you would look at your day and try to set up your meetings, and if you couldn't do a meeting, you would do the phone calls, and then at the end of each day, you would review the conversations to figure out what you needed to do to follow up the next day, either, I'm sure, reaching out to people you introduced to or thank you emails or whatever. And then if you would hierarchically plan your day, it sounds like, around in-person meetings and then phone calls. And if you had more time, then you would spend that time networking, either connecting on LinkedIn or sending emails. Is that how you use the flow?
Yeah, something like that. I also spent some time doing the LinkedIn workshops, reading books. I also took some downtime. I would go and hang out at Starbucks when I still could, with my dog. I didn't spend every waking moment looking for a job, that would be too stressful. And that's how I used to do things. I was just sending out resume after resume after resume, and I wanted to be more focused. I didn't want to be like that. I wanted to be very focused, and I didn't want it to be overwhelming in my head. And my hair is gray enough as it is. I dye it. I didn't want to add any more gray hairs. I wanted to be, this time when I selected my next job, I wanted to feel really good about it. And I didn't want it to be about, oh my God, I just need a job.
So how did you do that? You're referencing this a little bit, but how did you separate that job search from your life, in this case, going to Starbucks and hanging out with your dog?
Yeah.
So
Well,
did you have a schedule, or what did you do to keep it separate?
I did and I didn't. I mean, I wanted to make sure that I felt productive every day. So in the mornings, I would make sure to do all my emails and my phone calls. And if that meant I had other phone calls scheduled throughout the day, that's fine. But if I had a break throughout the day, I would allow myself some leisurely time. Of course, I worked out. I still do exercise almost every day. But if I had time to go to a Starbucks or do something else, then I would do that. I didn't have to sit in front of the computer all day long like I do when I have a job. And I figured, that's going to be plenty of time to be stuck in front of a desk in front of your computer once I go back to work full time. So I wanted to take the time while I had it to also give myself the leisure time, do the things you're not going to have time to do once you start working again. So I gave myself some of that time, and I allowed it. I didn't previously, when I was unemployed, which, for a few times before, I felt guilty doing those things. Like I have to be looking for a job 24/7. This time around, and Anna, encouraged us, which I appreciated. I gave myself permission to not be stressed out all the time, because you make bad decisions, I think, when you're doing things under that kind of pressure. And I didn't want it to be that way this time.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned that you work out every day, and I think that's kind of a good next step. So it sounds like you have some pieces of your schedule that are pretty consistent and were consistent even when you were in career transition. So do you work out at the same time, or is there anything else, whether sleep or anything else, that's just like part of your regular schedule?
Well, when I wasn't working, I always work out in the mornings. I get it done in the mornings. That's something that I started doing several years ago now. I'm not a morning person, but I didn't get done over with, because if I wait till the afternoon, I might be too tired, I might be too lazy, something comes up. But I get it done in the mornings. Now, when I wasn't working, I'd sleep in and I'd work out a little later. But now I wake up early and I work out first thing in the morning. I mean, like 5 o'clock in the morning, early. But so I still work out, shower, get dressed every day, even when I'm working from home. I still do that. And I just don't have to put a suit on. So that's the difference. But I still be very consistent. And I learned, for me, I feel better if I'm more productive, if I do those things in a very consistent way. And also, I have a separate workspace at home, even though I work from home most days. So I work it in my office, which is also the spare room. And I come in here after I work out and I work for a few hours, and then I go outside and have my lunch, I go for a walk, take my dog for a walk. And then I come back for the second half of my day, and I'll take breaks throughout the day, but I have a separation between working, so that my personal life is separated from my work life as much as possible. Because I know that's important for me. And I didn't used to have that, especially when I worked for a nonprofit. I worked a tremendous amount of hours for a lot less money, and it was very stressful. And I didn't want to keep doing that. So that's another reason why I made that change.
Okay, well, it sounds like you're doing a lot to set yourself up for productivity while you're working, and you're keeping those boundaries really strong. Do you set any expectations for yourself about what you're going to accomplish for each day or week? And then sort of that's sort of a broad answer about how you think about keeping yourself productive, or broad question.
Oh, definitely.
And then beyond that, a sort of sub question is, how did the ArcVita structure support or help motivate you? Or
well, you know what? I think that I really appreciated the approach of ArcVita, especially I'm working with Anna and yourself. You helped me think outside the box and helped me consider positions that I would probably never have considered before, or talking to people that I probably would not have spoken with before when I was looking for these jobs, and for the job that I have now. So it's kind of it opened my eyes to things that I hadn't considered before. So I like that. I like being open to other ideas and other options. And I didn't even know what an impact fund was before I took this job. So this was all new to me, and I'm learning all new stuff, and I'm meeting all kinds of new people. And it's exciting, because before COVID, I was traveling to the properties all over the place. I'd been to Florida, Texas, and there's a lot of places that eventually I'll be traveling to again. So, well, that's feel like I'm getting off track here, but the getting figuring out
expectations. What were you expecting of yourself, and in maybe even a week or a day or something like that? Do you have that kind of a vision, either now or before, when you were in career transition?
Well, I've always said, for my job, I'm not following the question.
Maybe I make it too vague. So I think in terms of like a schedule, what I'm trying to understand is, when you look at the week ahead, even now, of course, but as it relates to job search too, did you expect, like, oh, I'm going to have 10 conversations, I'm going to get these 4 projects done? Like, how do you frame your self expectations?
Yes, before, when I was looking for a job, I don't remember the number calls or meetings that we had talked about, but I did have goals for that, and I don't remember the number. Anna and I had talked about goals. I don't remember, it was 3 or 5 a day, something like that. But I did have those. I didn't always meet them. Some days I had more, but I tried. I did have goals, and I'm a very goal-oriented person. So it's better for me to have goals and try to achieve them than not have goals. And then I'm like, I'm lost. I like having goals. So if someone doesn't give me goals, I'll create my own. And that's been true for every job I've ever had too, because I've had plenty of jobs where the bosses were like, well, hello, where'd you go? I'll manage myself. So, but this job that I have now, I have learned my goals, and every Monday we have what's called a priorities meeting. So I have to give 3 priorities for that week. Now it's not the only job, that's not the only stuff that I do, but there's 3 main priorities that I have to tell that I'm working on for that week. And so that keeps me very focused on the top 3 that I got to work on for this week. So, and we have to share it with everybody. So I got to be prepared Monday morning. Okay.
You're
So I
ready.
like it. Actually, and it's a very quick meeting. So we have 2 mandatory meetings with everybody twice a week, and that's whether we're in person or in the office, and they're each 30 minutes, and we're talking about 20 people on that call, and it's 30 minutes. That's how efficient they go. So it's
Wow,
pretty
that's
good.
fast.
Yeah,
So
that's
when you were in transition, when you're in career transition, who did you talk about with the process about your search on a regular basis? Clearly your coach, but who else were you talking to about what your goals were, or what you were doing, or what the results were, and how often were you talking to them, and what kind of level of conversation did you or detail did you share with them?
well, I live with my boyfriend, so I'm sure I talk with him, but not that much. I just told him how my day went, but I didn't talk too much with him. Probably my cousin Esty. I think I spoke with her the most. She's probably known about all my jobs and everything I've been through, and how I slept the night before and what I eat for breakfast. So I think I spoke to her the most about it, about the process, about how it was working. I think I told her pretty much everything. I think I shared Anna's information with a couple of people. Arcvida, I can't even pronounce her company name. Arcvida.
Arquita, thank you. Arquita.
Sorry. I've definitely shared your information with a couple of people, younger people who are looking for work. So I don't know what's happened
Oh,
to them.
thank you. Yeah, we love that. And so many, I would say the majority of people that end up working with us do share, and people want to hear about it from their friends. So thank you. Um,
Yeah.
when you look back, and you might have already answered this because you said you have a checklist that you keep marked off, but did you keep any other record of your wins? And I'm asking both, of course, during your career transition, but also now. Do you have a journal or like a record of like what happened that you can say, that you can look back and say like, hey, this is what I accomplished?
The closest I have to that is whatever I put on my LinkedIn. Honestly, if it makes it onto my LinkedIn profile, it's because it's something that I was proud of. Um, I don't typically. The other thing is, like, I have framed my master's degree and my CFRE, and then I have hung up on the wall all my medals from all my mud runs, my Spartan. Um, but I don't typically keep a journal of all those things. I take pictures more of memories that make me happy or make me proud, but I'm not a journal person.
So it sounds like you are using a lot of visual tools, though. I'm definitely using your
Yeah,
LinkedIn as a place to
yeah,
record wins is good for you and other people, and builds your credibility. But framing your degrees and hanging your medals. I know fitness, you've mentioned a couple times in this conversation, and I knew this too, that fitness is a really big part of your life. And so you're visually marking your success, and you're looking at those
yeah.
tangible, nice. Um, Anything, what about mentally, if you're preparing to do something, whether that's a fitness goal or in the case of your career transition, did you have any mental images that you would focus on, or maybe even tactical, maybe it was more visual or vision board or anything like that that you would look at or think about?
Well, when I was looking for the there's a couple things that I've done to help inspire myself, because there are plenty of times where you don't feel motivated. A while ago, when I was still working nonprofit, especially when I was working, I was accepted this position that I wasn't sure I was ready for, but I took it anyway because I really wanted it. And I was excited about it. And before my first day, I looked in the mirror and I said, I was really nervous. I was so nervous. And I looked in the mirror and I just told myself 3 times, you can do this. You are capable. You can do this. I'll give you all this self-affirmation. And I actually worked. This is the first time I'd ever done that. I'm like, hey, this stuff is actually work. So I went to work and I was like, hey, this is great. I can do it. I fooled myself. And it worked because I actually did do a job. I did that job really well. I did that job better. I got promoted after the first year. I'm like, I got to keep doing that self-affirmation stuff. That works. Do self-affirmations. So I did that. And then let's see, the Spartan race was a big scary thing for me, because that's like a 7-mile run and carrying heavy stuff everywhere. But I just said, yeah, gotta do it. Gotta give it a try. It was hard, but I did it with 7 other guys from the military, and some of them were struggling. I'm like, they're struggling too. I don't feel bad.
So you did it with support, and
Oh
isn't
yeah,
that true of everything that's hard? The support makes such a big difference. Clearly, we think that.
Well, you're not alone, and you're not the first person who's ever felt this way. As long as you understand that everybody's felt this, no matter how confident people look on the outside, that deep down they've had fears about something, because all humans have.
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is I have one more question and then maybe we'll do a little bit of a wrap up here. When you're thinking about keeping your physical and mental energy high, what are the components that you return to over and over on that? And the side question is, if you do feel down, either emotionally down or low physical energy, what do you do to mitigate
If I'm feeling really low and tired, it's probably because I am tired and I need to take a break. Sometimes I push myself too hard, and I just need to take a step back and take a count of what's going on and just rest. Maybe I don't need to work out that day. Maybe I need to treat myself to something. I just need to figure out what's making me feel tired. Or something stressing me? Maybe I need to address that. What is causing me to feel this way? Usually if I'm burnt out, if I'm tired, when's the last time I had a little vacation? You know what I mean? Maybe I need a selfie day, not a selfie like pictures, but a self-care day. And I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a day off from work just to relax and take care of yourself. So I think sometimes we need to do that. And I have done that, and then I've come back and felt much better and being productive. Humans still need to do that. They need to take care of themselves.
Right, so taking some time off. So thank you for all of this. It's sort of a wrap up if you look back at the time you spent in your career transition and you were going to give sort of I don't want to say soundbite, but I guess I will, soundbite to our clients or people who are in transition, struggling and not just struggling, but really focusing on maintaining momentum. What's sort of the overall advice you would give?
It was hard for me to also maintain momentum, but I would say do it anyway. If I know you're not going to want to make those phone calls, you're not going to want to send those emails, do them anyway. And if you're really nervous about it, call somebody you know. Call somebody you know who loves you, or at least likes you, and just talk to them for a few minutes, and then you'll feel better. Because that's what I used to do. And then you start getting used to talking to people about it. But just do it anyway, because you won't regret it. You'll regret not doing it.
I love that. I love that. Well, it's been really fun talking to you and hearing, I've seen the results certainly from the outside of the way that you focus on momentum in your personal life and your physical goals that you've achieved, as well as your career goals and your transition. But it's cool to hear a little bit more of your strategy, and also honestly it's skills that you've built up, and I really appreciate you sharing them with us. So thank you so much for
Well,
being here.
well, thanks for having me. And like I said, it worked for me. I followed it. I don't think I followed it to the letter, but I tried following it to the all the advice that was given to me. And the job I have now is thanks to the networking and then following the advice I received. And so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Well, awesome.